What's up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. Along with me is my very good friend, Tony Defeo. And you have stumbled upon the Steelers Hangover, which sometimes the Steelers Hangover could be something that is not really that fun because, you're just languishing, you're sweaty, you're feeling like, oh, what have I done? You've had a bad night. And that's usually a Pittsburgh Steelers loss. But then you have that night where you're like, woo, that was awesome. My head hurts, but I'm glad it hurts because I had the greatest night of my life. And I got to tell you, that's what the Steelers Hangover is all about. And this is a very good hangover just for that reason, because Tony Defeo, our Pittsburgh Steelers, had a revenge game. And I don't care what anybody says, it was a game of revenge. They were embarrassed 17 days before in Cleveland with just a whole monstrosity of humanity. And then turns around and there was a lot of victim shaming to go with it. So here's what I'm saying. I'm satisfied with what happened. All the talking's over. We talked about it. They're wearing shirts that say Pittsburgh started it. Tony Defeo, before you get started, could we finish that sentence? Pittsburgh started it, but
Pittsburgh and the Duck and the defense, they finished it yesterday. And they finished Cleveland's season too. Yes.
And here's the thing. BTSC, Shirtmeister extraordinaire Jeff Hartman has the new BTSC T-shirts up. It says they're on the site. Cleveland started it, Pittsburgh finished it, and they're on sale now. Also, one of the great T-shirts that you can go ahead and get if you don't want that T-shirt, but that's on there. Just the BTSC T-shirt. Those are really nice. Would make great holiday stocking stuffers for you and yours. So that's something you got to go ahead and check out. The Behind the Steel Curtain T-shirts this holiday season. There you go. And look at this. I'm loving this already. Just Me says, I ordered mine yesterday. So that's awesome. I love it. There's so much to talk about. We're feeling really good. Jamie Calhays wants to ask, there's going to be questions about this. How about the Touchdown Zone T-shirt? You get it. If you want the Touchdown Zone T-shirt, you need to talk to Jeff Hartman. Don't let him forget about that. I think that would be a great stocking stuffer. And I know we're going to hear it, especially if Lance Williams is on here. He's going to want to know about the 2 a.m. Just Take It T-shirt. Hey, talk to Jeff because they are in charge there as far as that goes, creating cool T-shirts. If you're going to buy them, we'll get them to you. That's really cool. Hey, thanks, everybody. We've got all kinds of people checking in on the live chat here to support this show. Tony, tell them what to do.
You got to subscribe. Just click below and subscribe, and then whenever the show comes on, this show or any other BTSC podcast, you'll get a notification, and you can go right there and join in.
And also hit like as well. Hey,
there you go.
Just remember this. You're our Steeler family. We're glad to have you here. Should we get this hangover started, Tony?
I am feeling good. I don't know about a hangover. I'm feeling really good.
Well,
it went down pretty smooth. I'll say that.
That was a good one. What was your knee-jerk reaction? Especially, let's start with this. Your knee-jerk reaction with the first, let's just say, couple Cleveland series of the game.
To be honest with you, my knee-jerk reaction was I thought it was going to be a long day. And I'm telling you the truth. I thought it was going to be not like a major blowout, but I figured like maybe a 20-3, 17-3 kind of day because it didn't look like the offense was going to do anything. But for the first time in a long time, I was pleasantly surprised with everything that transpired over the last, 35 minutes of that game. It was a glorious way to end that game.
So here's the thing, Tony. There was all this talk coming in, and we could talk we could talk all day about T-shirts, what Freddie Kitchens was wearing to a Mr. Rogers movie, in which
Mhm.
I love how we blow that out of proportion. I
Right,
even
right.
blew it out of proportion the other night. I'm like, how dare you wear that to a Fred Rogers movie?
Yeah,
But come on, it's a T-shirt. But
right.
hey, we talk about the Steelers giving bulletin board material all the time by talking the past couple years. What about the? I mean, that's not just bulletin board material. That's reason to go ahead out there and get more fired up. And I don't care if he says after the game, like it wasn't about a T-shirt. We weren't prepared. Yeah, but and I heard Deion Sanders even saying on the NFL Network, Are you serious? A T-shirt's what's going to fire you up? You're professionals." And he was being pretty awful. But here's the thing: it's not that. It's just the fact that it was the disrespect factor. And the title of the show the other day that I had are the Browns getting in the Steelers' heads? And obviously they got in their heads the right way and they knew how to manage it, because the Browns, they had this newfound aggression. They finally felt like, hey, we could go ahead and sniff the playoffs. We can go ahead and we can beat our long time oppressor. We beat them once, we could beat them again and put them away. And all this, and they had a us against the world mentality. Now it's over. They're just a disappointment at this point. Now their season is not over, as you'll see in an article that we have coming out this week, Steelers Friends and Enemies. It's a look at all of the fourth quarter schedules for the AFC wildcard contenders, not just them, but all of the contenders there. And we'll talk about that a little later on in the show. But my knee-jerk reaction to start the game was, oh, here we go again. They can't stop Baker Mayfield. This fantastic heart of the team defense can't stop them. What were you thinking there, Tony?
Well, I mean, it was kind of discouraging the end of that first drive because, I mean, all credit to Baker Mayfield and Jarvis Landry, but they teamed up to make a great catch and throw and catch on 3rd and 14. It was just extraordinary. So I thought, here we go. They're gonna be up 7-0, but to the defense's credit, they held tough there and they forced a 3. And I think that was the first time in a while that the Browns didn't score a touchdown on the first drive. So I think that set a tone that, hey, look, we're going to bend a little bit early, but we're not going to break. And they didn't break. And then by the end of the game, they didn't do anything. They didn't bend or anything. They held firm on defense. It was a extraordinary response after that big play by Mayfield and Jarvis Landry.
You know what? And Wes says the run D was a little concerning in this game. And Knapp 1963.
But Nick Chubb's a great runner, so I mean, you got to give him credit.
Not just Nick Chubb, man. I tell you what, I can't stand the guy, but number 27. I'm not even going to say his name, but number 27 is pretty tough. So you have those two guys, and they're going to put up over 100 yards on that defense, but individually they did not, and
right.
That's a pretty big deal there. It was bend not break from the beginning, but I was after they got it together, I wasn't really feeling any pain at that point. I was thinking, okay, I think at the end of the second half, of course at the end of the second half, but at the end of the first half, I was feeling like, you know what, they got this. I was finally there. 4TL Music Group, great contributor to the show. Hey, Tony and Bad, I love the win, but does Duck know how to throw slants? Just asking because I looked like he was heaving the ball and was just making great catches, and wide receivers was just making great catches. Other Ds will pick Duck. He has shown the tendency to do so. Look, this guy, I mean, can't make too many excuses for him because he did play in college. I mean, he had a great career in college, but the pro game, there's a lot to pick up in this game, and it's a completely different style of play. And in fact, he wasn't playing, Division One. He was playing Division One AA. I know it's called FCS now and FBS for Division One. But what I'm saying is, this guy wasn't even on a practice squad of another team. He wasn't on a roster at the end of Labor Day. he was just there to hold a clipboard, and all of a sudden he's starting. Everyone's talking about a third stringer. No, this is a fourth stringer coming in.
And he
give him time.
Yeah, he showed great arm strength on the throw to Tevin Jones right before the 30-yard touchdown to Washington at the end of the first half. So, I mean, that wasn't a slant, but it was definitely a throw where he had to drill it in there between 2 or 3 defenders. So, I'm sure he does know how to throw slant passes. I mean, that's not that difficult of a like you said. Somebody like him should be able to throw those. He probably just didn't have many opportunities. It was his first or second start, so it's a big learning curve. He's probably trying to process a lot of information at once. So, all things considered, he did a pretty good job yesterday.
You know what? I'm going to bring this up. Duck was the equivalent of the Heisman in FCS, which is the Walter Payton Award, and I have been bringing up since May. I was really excited about this guy coming in just for the fact that I wanted him to be a third stringer, and I wanted him on the team instead of Josh Dobbs, and I was vocal about that, and I'll be glad. I'm not like the Baltimore Raven fans that hated Lamar Jackson even in August, still thought he was horrible, and now they're like, woo, he's awesome, I loved him since the beginning. Like, no, you're lying, because I answered a couple of those on my Facebook today. But what I'm saying is, not only was he the equivalent of the Heisman in the FCS, he broke Steve McNair's 24-year record of all-time passing yards in FCS, which that is a pretty big deal. If you remember anything about Steve McNair in college, he was absolutely amazing. Pretty good in the pros, too. I want to do a shout-out here to a guy that does this at the beginning of every one of our shows, to not much fanfare, and I love this, that he does this. Mr. Joey Franklin Jr., 585, Rochester, New York. He's loud, and he's proud of it. So I love it. Don't be afraid to let us know where you're coming from. Bo says again, hey, he was just a camp arm, and that's all he was. But we've seen camp arms turn things around. Cecil Clark says, bad, Duck will be fine. I agree. I think he will be fine. But remember, he hasn't had time. We got to give this guy time. So
3 games, that's all he has so far under his belt.
And Shaner Smith, I'm an 814 guy myself. I'm a little bit away from there, about 45 minutes down the road in Johnstown, PA, Richland to be exact. But love the tuna. Love the tuna. We've got, I never knew Snowman was from Newcastle, Delaware, which is probably not too far from me being here in Maryland. Here's a question. Here's a big one, Tony. Hey, Bad, and Tone Deaf, too. Don't forget Tone Deaf.
Well,
how far can we make it in the playoffs with Duck and Mason? You know what? Let's take let's go in the time machine. And I know I do this a little too much with you guys, but Tony, would you join me to go back in time? Would you like to go into the BTSC DeLorean? I like that. It's a little Wayne's World-ish, but I like that. Okay.
What year is this?
Let's go back to the year that I graduated high school, and I believe the year before you graduated high school. Let's go back 30 years ago.
All right, 30 years.
30 years. Well, I'm going to go back to 89.
Okay.
So I think I graduated 2 years before you then. So let's go back to 1989. There's another number 6, okay? His name was Walter Bubby Brister, a brash Southern not really a gentleman, but a brash Southern guy that he wasn't afraid to back it up, and I think he had something that we've been hearing 2 words. Well, let me throw the one word out. I'm going to throw the word poise out. We're hearing poise a lot with Duck, and which is true. But I'm not going to say Bubby had poise, but he had the one word that everybody is going to go ahead and describe Duck Hodges with. And what is that 5-letter word?
Moxie.
Moxie. I believe it's Moxie.
Right. I Googled it before I wrote it in an article a while back because I knew people would give me trouble for it. So it's definitely how you spell it.
Because he's all about moxie. And look, I mean, that team started out in 92-10, losing 51-0 to the Browns at home. Horrible loss. Then going ahead and losing to the Cincinnati Bengals 41-10. So then they came out and beat Minnesota, and they lost a lot of stinkers along the way. Ended up 9-7. Had to get help on Christmas night of all things. The Minnesota Vikings helped them out with a Monday Night Football victory over the Cincinnati Bengals, which I watched with my buddies, and it was just an amazing thing, and it just felt absolutely awesome.
It was magical. One of my favorite times as a sports fan.
That was a great run. They fell short. They had a good defense back then. They did not have the defense that the Steelers do right now.
Right.
The 2019 Steelers do. They don't. They probably had a little better of an offense than the Steelers do.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm not predicting that they're going to go far in the playoffs. I'm predicting that they're going to probably get in there if they do what they're supposed to do and they don't stop. And they could get there. So, but remember, they've got to take care of business before anyone else does.
Right.
But so all I'm saying is that team was led by a guy with moxie and swagger, and I believe Cecil here. Did I lose that here? I love this line. Brister was a bad dude, a mean. Shut your mouth. Let me do the Shaft impression there. So, and I got to tell you this.
He had a great arm, probably a better arm than Duck, but Duck's not bad either. He has a pretty decent arm too. And
I got to deal with something here before we go forward. Tony, who did you pick in this game?
Who did I pick?
Steelers?
I think I said like maybe 17-14. I can't remember if I picked them. I knew it was going to be a low-scoring game.
The only guy that backed me up when I said that the Steelers were probably going to lose this game was Dennis Sheridan. And I love this line. Everyone knows that Bat and I called the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey, I love when I'm wrong. When I'm wrong this way, I love that I'm wrong. So I have no problem being wrong. And I don't think that it's that wrong to go ahead and prognosticate and predict that your team's going to lose. But Tony, don't say anything on that, because a little teaser, I think that is going to be the subject of Point Counterpoint this week with Bryan Anthony Davis and Tony Defeo on Behind the Steel Curtain.
And boy, do I have a bone to pick with you about that.
What?
Well, Point Counterpoint. I have a bone to pick with you. Yeah, obviously. I'm so riled up about that.
Yeah, Mitchell, I did. I picked the Browns. I definitely picked the Browns. Dennis was joking because Dennis was with me. He was the only one that backed me up in saying that if I said it wrong on the show, I apologize. But look, I did think that the Browns were going to go ahead and win this game. I just had that bad gut feeling. But sometimes you got to be pessimistic. I told you guys the other night that I wish I would have had that bad feeling in my gut and followed it when I married my first wife. I had to wait the second time around to find happiness. So guess what? I'm like the Steelers. I finished it. It just took me a couple years to do that.
That's right. A couple mulligans. Nothing wrong with that.
So I am Dwayne says blasphemy. But anyways, let's get back. Let's wrap up the 89 Steelers real quick. That was a fun season. I just kind of feel like this is the kind of team that has that kind of. They have that kind of je ne sais quoi that I just feel that they can go ahead and surprise some people.
Yeah,
I'm not saying win the Super Bowl,
right?
But make a run.
Yeah, they have the great equalizer now. They have the defense. Like for years, we talked about the franchise quarterback being the great equalizer, and he is for just about every team that has one. Well, they don't have that now, unfortunately, but they definitely have an elite defense. And we've seen it with the Ravens so many times throughout the years. They've made runs as wild card teams. They've won one or two games in the playoffs. So with that defense, I mean, I could see them if they make the playoffs, which I'm not counting, my chickens before they're hatched. But if they do make the playoffs, I could definitely see them going and winning at least one game because of the defense. It's just so good right now. It's playing lights out.
They are, you know what, they really are. But if we go ahead and put a valedictorian on this game, we're gonna grade them straight up. I mean, I gave them a B plus, but you know what? You could also give them an A just for the adversity. This was a game they had to win. This was the game to find out exactly who they were, and that's it.
Right.
That's exactly what they needed. But if you're going to go ahead and put a valedictorian on this game, who's it going to be? And we're going to get a little help. We're going to get a little help from my man Keaton here. James Washington.
It's got to be him.
Up balling.
He made the three catches that he made. Those three athletic catches. They led to 17 points. I mean, how could he not be the valedictorian? He was the best game he's ever played, and maybe offensive player of the week with those three catches.
And I'm going to put this up here. Michael Toole, who always keeps me accountable, and I appreciate Michael for that. We cannot overlook the Cardinals. No, we can't. And I'm not saying we're going to. I'm just saying that and if you overlook the Cardinals, you're going to be in trouble. But if you take care of your business, you could go to the playoffs. And the question was broached, can Duck do anything if they make it to the playoffs? Can we do it with this team? Here's our guy, Isaac Aguilera. This guy, he was working all night and had like a couple hours of sleep, and I finally got to watch the game. I'm having trouble bringing it up, so I'll just read it here. Why did the Steelers get no credit for this win? Instead, everyone is focusing on the Browns sucking. I mean, we all knew this. LOL. You know what? I mean, I'm not sure why they're not. I think they're getting credit. I mean,
yeah, I've seen enough credit for them for sure. So
we brought up in here. Let me go ahead and bring that up. Thank you, Isaac, for the $5. If you do want to support the show, like we said before, subscribe, also hit the bell for notifications as well. But you could also go ahead and support with the super chat, and we'll go ahead and put you to the top of the queue. Thanks, Isaac, once again for about that $5 donation to the show. So the question here is the valedictorian. I think we said James Washington, and I completely believe it. I will also, I'll give a lot of praise to Duck Hodges for the way he handled that game. And we'll talk about the defense as well. Bud Dupree as well, a stud once again. Fastly becoming just the guy. But there's a lot of the guys on that defense, and I never thought we'd say that. But back to the valedictorian. Let's call them valedictorians, okay? When did this game change in your mind, Tony? Because I know exactly where I thought it changed.
It was the free play at the with about 6 minutes left in the second quarter when Hodges threw deep down the left sideline to Washington and he made that great play and kept both feet in bounds. That changed the whole game. 31 yards.
You know what? That's the thing. And Randy Fichtner, and I'm always on this guy, and I know I'm always on this guy. You're probably sick of it. But Randy Fichtner was keeping him shackled up. Maybe it was Tomlin. I mean, I don't know, but he was kept shackled up. They always say we're not going to live in our fears, but they lived in their fears until they had a free play. So if he gets picked, doesn't matter. He comes back. But still, if it gets picked, it sticks in. Like when you watch a courtroom drama, and they're like, "I object," and they're like, "Sustained" or "overruled" or whatever, and they shout out something, but it's still out there, and still in the jury. Even though jury disregard that, the jury still has it in their head. I've watched a few good men like 17 1,000 times, and I could probably recite that. And that might be a podcast coming up when we have nothing to do in February. Tony and Bryan actually reenact A Few Good Men court scene. So we might be doing that. I'm not sure who's going to be Jack Nicholson or Tom Cruise. We'll fight over that in point counterpoint, and maybe you guys could help us out with that too. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, if you throw an interception there, it sticks in your craw.
Right.
You remember it. A young quarterback like Duck, it's going to stick in his head. But James Washington with those mammoth, I'd like to see his hands because he has the best hands. I think instead of like natural oils, I think he has just like stickum coming through his pores because that guy can catch a football and he has very good hands. But when he caught that ball, I'm like, here it is. And they unleashed him. They let him do his thing after that.
Right.
And that was, to me, that was the turning point of this ball game. And they get the ball back, and next thing you know, they've got a tie game.
Right.
And being down 10-0, I didn't think they were going to survive that.
I didn't think they were going to score a touchdown the way it started. The whole game. I thought they would be lucky if they scored a couple field goals.
So, you know what? Then we go to the defensive side of the ball. Once again, TJ Watt, 12.5 sacks now, which I tweeted this out, and Tony, you're the only person who liked it. Hey, remember, I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm stuck on 97 Twitter followers for a couple weeks now. I got to get to that century mark. So anybody that wants to help me out there, feel free. At BTSC BAD or BAD BTSC. Maybe that's why you can't follow me because I can't remember my name. But my Twitter handle is that what we call it? I remember the first time my dad heard about Twitter. He's like, he was complaining about Rashard Mendenhall making comments. He goes, yeah, and he put it on the tweeter. And I went, the tweeter? What the hell's the tweeter? But anyways, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. You've got Bud Dupree. Wow. You've got TJ Watt. And back to, see, I'm getting all messed up here. But TJ, he now has 12.5 sacks. He is now 11th all-time, tied with Clark Haggans in the Steelers sack list. 11th all-time already. But Bud Dupree is already, he's in the top 20 now, too.
Yeah.
So this team is making it happen. And I'm loving it. But they're getting help on defense. Since Stephon Tuitt went down, Cam Hayward had probably his first quarter of the season probably was, you could say, a disappointment.
Yeah.
Then after that, he's just been playing lights out.
Right.
And that's the leader
Maybe
that
his
he
best
is.
season.
You have 5 or 6 leaders on this defense. Of course, we know what Minka's been doing. Dill Winnett just followed me. I've got 98, baby. Thanks, Dill Winnett. Not just that, now you have corners. When was the last time we're talking about having quality corners?
Yeah.
And anybody that wants to say that Joe Hayden got the money and ran, he's one of the league leaders in pass defenses. He has 2 interceptions. He's playing very good ball. That's the leader in that team. And don't you think that felt good? That had to feel good for him.
Ask OBJ how good Joe Hayden still is.
Yeah.
What 29 yards he had yesterday?
Yeah. Yeah, he was a mess. And
and let's not forget that nice play that Hilton made after the interception. They were trying to throw down to, I guess it was Jarvis Landry at the goal line, and Hilton knocked it away at the last second. That was a big play.
So apparently we just got word from above that Jeff Hartman's like, are we talking about Twitter followers now? And he sends this to me, to my personal text all the time. Always the facepalm emoji. And he knows I hate the facepalm emoji. But he does that to me all the time. And I know he's giggling right now. I'm sure he is. Mitchell Green, no, I'm not going to be like Lance and go against us every week. It was just, I had a bad gut. That's it. Sometimes you get the bad gut, and
Well, the way it looks like such a mismatch on offense, with the Browns coming in with Baker Mayfield and all those weapons, and then the Steelers having what they had. I mean, who would have predicted that Washington would go off the way he did yesterday? That Doc would look as comfortable as he did in the second half. So I mean, I didn't have a great feeling about the game either. The only thing I was relying on was the fact that it was the Browns, and the Browns always eventually act like the Browns. So that's the only thing I was going. That's the only thing I hung my hat on was it was the Browns.
and if it's Brown, flush it down.
Right.
And that's exactly what the Steelers did. As far as everything else goes, we're talking about the defense. We love what we're seeing in Cam, and of course, he doesn't get enough credit for this. Vinny Vidi Vici, number 98, Vince Williams, since he came back from injury, the running game, the rush defense has gotten so much better, and it's amazing. Devin Bush showed up yesterday.
Yeah.
Of course, Nelson and Hayden were showing up. Terrell Edmonds was showing up. I mean,
Right.
it's really hard to say anybody on that defense that didn't have a good game, and I'm forgetting the Gravedigger.
Yeah, he had the biggest sack of the game, I think.
Yeah, and he had a big half sack too in there, so he had a great game.
Right.
And Tyson Alualu, he's showing up. He's having a fine season that nobody's really noticing.
Right.
So I'm loving that defense. I hope it keeps going. And you got to just think that somebody mentioned it earlier, and I'm not sure, it was way back in the comment section, that could Duck be our Trent Dilfer? I mean, let's
not insult him too much.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, go easy on him. He's a rookie.
But that's funny. But I mean, Trent Dilfer, led a team to a championship, and you can never take it away from him. He had a fantastic defense. I'm not ready to go that far yet, but I'm pretty excited about him. Cody Marshall, $2. Randy making Duck look good, or the other way around? Tony, you can answer that. $2. Thanks, Cody. I appreciate it.
I think Randy, the more I think about it, I think he was afraid to let those guys throw downfield, but I think yesterday was a bit of a wake-up call for him. So, we have to realize that last year when he had all his weapons, they had a great red zone offense. So, you have to put a little bit of the blame on the players, and remember, this is the third offensive coordinator we wanted to run out of town since Bruce Arians. So I don't think that's much of a coincidence. I think it's more us than it is them at times. But I think moving forward, if Randy Fichtner didn't learn from yesterday that he should trust his young quarterback, then maybe he'll never learn that lesson until Ben comes back.
Yeah, my feelings. Ben Roethlisberger is the offensive coordinator of the team. When he went down, they lost their OC, and I really feel like that's to be true. Here's a great comment. Question actually: is Washington becoming such a deep threat that teams will have to start focusing on him and more creating more opportunities for Juju and Johnson to make plays, or is he not there yet? That's Michael Toole, and that's a great question. I think that's Tony. I think that's kind of the case. I think when Juju comes back, you can't leave Washington alone. He's going to burn you.
Yeah, and we forget that how difficult the NFL is for rookie receivers. I think there have been many articles written about how rookie receivers struggled, to make it, and then by their second or third year, they flip the switch, and maybe you're seeing that with Washington. I mean, the talent has always been there, as evidenced by how he played in the preseason the last 2 years. So I think it was just a matter of time before he started to put it together in the regular season. And the fact that they were doing a quarterback carousel this year because of injuries and poor play, that didn't help either. But, maybe now he's finally hitting his stride. And when Juju does come back, I mean, you're going to have two young guys who one who's already proven himself, he's a Pro Bowler, and another who might be heading in that direction.
So, I mean, there you go. And for those of you that don't want James Conner to come back as well, come on, we need James Conner back. He opened some things up, and I know that I know there's some frustration, and the reason there's frustration with this guy is just for the fact that
It's just all injuries. That's all it is.
he's always hurt. But
The
hey,
talent is there. The talent is there.
I mean, you know what? I mean, think about what his body's gone through. And I'm not talking on the football field. I'm talking about with cancer and treatment. That as much as you try to strengthen those muscles too, I mean, he might have a lower resistance for tears and things like that. So, I really don't have a problem with it. You need to get him back and open it up. You have him, you have Snell, you have Samuels, who I called a Verron Haynes the other night, and who Jeff mentioned that on the show. Thanks for the yesterday for mentioning me and Verron Haynes. I really appreciated that. I actually met Verron Haynes. I drove him to the airport once, but that's another story for another time. But you've got a good running back committee, and don't forget Kareth White. I hope he sticks around too, especially, I mean, he was opening things up as far as return game goes, averaging 24 yards per return, something Ryan Switzer didn't do. Deontay Johnson also catching punts. I'm liking what he's doing as well. Here is a $10 contribution from 4TL Music Group. Questionable calls in all Steelers games for the last 3 years. Why does it seem like they are out to get us? It goes back to Bus and Thanksgiving game. Guess who was in New York doing replays? Yep, Riveron. Al Riveron.
That was such an obvious reversal. I'm assuming he's talking about the what should have been a touchback late in the game, right? And everybody saw the knee hitting the touching the ball with the player out of bounds, and then was it Gene Steratore? He was even saying, look, that's definitely going to be reversed. And then when they didn't reverse it, he tried to stick up for his guy and say, oh yeah, he had possession. That's probably what they're saying. He had possession before, he had two hands on the ball. So they're saying the ball was dead there, which is totally bogus. Give me a break.
Yeah, that's, I mean, even Dan Fouts, who seems to not like the Steelers, it was like, that's a horrible call. How can they do that? I'm like, Dan Fouts is sticking up for you. You guys think Chris Collinsworth hates the Steelers? I don't think he does. I'm a Chris Collinsworth fan, actually.
He's very good.
Yeah, you guys are going to kill me for that. But Fouts hates the Steelers more than a lot of teams, but they've also stifled him a lot in his career. This is something that we've had on BTSC media and Twitter, and this is just fantastic. Andre Coleman, thank you so much for throwing this one in. Here's the stats from the last 10 games, and think about it: 10 games, no Minkah. So, I mean, 10 games, Minkah. First 2 games, no Minkah. And then Bud comes back as well. First in takeaways, 28. First in quarterback hits, 78. First in passes defensed, 65. First in fumble recoveries, 13. First in forced fumbles, 17. Second in interceptions, 15. Look, we've had some glory Steeler defenses in the last 30 years. I don't remember stats quite like this.
And that's what I said before. This defense is a great equalizer for them now. That's why they can win any game they're in down the stretch. These last 4 games, that they're going to have a chance to win all of them because of that defense. And not only are they opportunistic and getting after the quarterback, but they're maturing and they're closing games out. We saw that in LA or with the Rams at Heinz Field. We saw that last week. And we saw it yesterday. They're closing out games now. That's another sign of a maturing defense. They're not just opportunistic, but they're learning how to hold a lead in the fourth quarter.
Cowdog Game says that's a top 2 defense. Yeah, you can't deny that. Just absolutely absolutely incredible. But as far as everything else is going, um, so what are your thoughts, Tony? If we're going to go ahead and we talked about a grade earlier, what if we went ahead and threw out a grade? Not just let's just not throw out a grade for yesterday's game. Let's throw it out for the third quarter of the season. Where do you grade the Steelers there?
Well, I mean, it's with the exception of the game in Cleveland. I mean, I think that the third quarter of the season has saved their season. So I'm going to give them an A minus because for staying alive and not giving up and not tanking the season like so many teams have done.
Yeah. So that's definite right there. I think they've just that one game they had a rough time, but you've got to look where it has turned them around. But that last quarter of the season, actually the last two quarters of the season, 3-1, 3-1, after starting 1-3, that's a pretty big deal. Tony and Bad, what do you think of Edmonds taking Barron's role and Davis coming back and Tuitt coming back on defense? I guess you're talking next year. I don't even know about next year because you don't even know if where Davis. I mean, I guess he'll resign because will Davis even come back? Come back now? I mean, this year, will he even come back?
If he does, then you have yourself a pretty decent backup, which it would. I don't know why you would object to that if you're a Steeler fan, because he would be an upgrade in depth. So, but as far as next year, I think he's probably going to want to start somewhere. So he'll probably leave as a free agent, but that's okay because Minkah Fitzpatrick's obviously going to be an elite talent for them for the next half decade at least.
Absolutely. Snowman asked if I could answer his $2 question. I must have lost it, or I went to. I get all confused. So actually, or I already did. I can't remember what I did, but I appreciate it. If I didn't ask it again, I'll definitely grab it. Matt P, I like this question here too. Actually, not really a question; it's a comment. Matt P, I honestly think Steeler fans over exaggerate how bad Barron is.
I'm guilty. I was guilty until last week, until I read an article about how I think it was Flip Fisher's film review of his play, and it kind of convinced me that maybe I was being a little too hard on him.
So yeah, as far as that, I think Barron, to me, I don't think he's a complete bust. He's having some games where you're like, wow, he's really stepping up, and then there's others that it's not like he's horrendous,
right?
And to me, I just don't think he is. So as far as anything with this guy, you really can't say that he's horrible when maybe he's not the best on the defense, but look how great that defense is. Maybe right. I think the worst, let's put it this way, of their starting defense, the worst defenders are probably Terrell Edmonds and Mark Barron, and maybe throw in Mike Hilton. And right. I think they're all having decent years.
Right.
So, I mean, just because they're not standing out like the other guys, and when I say worse, don't come and defend them because I don't think they're bad at all. I'm just saying that's how good they are.
Yeah.
At this point. The secondary is so much better this season. What Barron's doing is I think he's a piece of the puzzle, and we need those pieces of the puzzle. So he worked. Who didn't work for them was number 42, Morgan Burnett, didn't
right.
work for the Steelers.
Right. He didn't even want to play. He didn't want to fill the role at all. He wanted to be a safety. He didn't want to fill the role that he came here to fill.
He played really well against the Steelers a couple of weeks ago, but I mean, he didn't want to play the role, but he had no problem. He had no problem signing.
Right. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Wes Hickok says, Barron's issue is he isn't strong against tight ends. So yeah, I did mess up the $2 question from Snowman. Update on our injured players, please. So good news yesterday. Really, I didn't even see anybody limp off in that game yesterday. I haven't heard much of an injury report. I did not hear anything from James Conner today. He usually does his show in Pittsburgh, his radio show at 5:00, the same time that we usually get started. So I didn't get a chance to check in on it. Last week, he said he needs a little more time. He did return to practice last week. I think it was to start getting some work, but I don't know. I don't really expect him back right away. The knee with Juju, I don't know. We'll find out more from Mike Tomlin tomorrow. But as far as the injured players, I think those are the two major ones to talk about. Am I missing anybody else?
I think that's about it. Yeah. Yeah, there's those two. I don't think anybody else has been chronically injured. It's just been Juju and Connor the last few weeks.
And I really think when Juju comes back, that really helps open things up a little more. One thing that we didn't mention earlier than I had on my mind, you were talking about how James Washington and Devlin Hodges have a good rapport. They go duck hunting every Tuesday, and some other players go too. And he was talking about it. I heard a soundbite from him talking about how that just gives them a chance to know each other and get on the same page a little bit more. And I love that they do that together. I remember guys like Kiesel and Debo used to go hunting together all the time and doing stuff like that. Bonding that way is a really big deal, especially between a quarterback and a receiver. This doesn't make Juju. This doesn't push Juju aside. This just means when he comes back, there's more opportunities for everybody because there's more of a threat on the field. And I think it's going to make the quarterback. I think it's going to make everything so much better at that point. Joey Franklin Jr. Says, I wish we had Rosie Nix back. Yeah, I think that would help out so much more. You definitely really do need one. But they're basically going without one. There's no fullback in Pittsburgh right now, and I don't think the closest thing was Sutton Smith, who's not even a fullback. Nap 1963 quotes DVE this morning. They doubted Connor is back for the Cards. Juju's a little closer, but still a long shot for the Cards. That's true. NDR says it's also the way that Jay Washington is catching the ball, difficult combat catches, and those hands. I agree. But this is the big one, and Snowman says it. He's freed. Mr. Pouncey is back, and he will be back, and that's a big deal.
Big Daddy's back.
So I have Steve O'Neill says there's no bond like a good duck hunt. I have never been duck hunting. Maybe Tony and I need to bond with a duck hunt. I mean, we do pretty well, but can you see you and me going duck hunting, or do you want to go anywhere near me with a gun?
No, that's what I was going to say. I don't think I would be a very good shot. So, and I wouldn't want to sit in the woods either. I'm kind of a I like the indoors, so I'm a city guy. So I don't know if I would be good to bond with in the woods. I'd be pretty miserable, and you'd probably hate me by the end of the day.
I could never hate you, Tony. You're my buddy. Rob Rossi, and he says the two practice squad players, Kane and White, have been a nice addition to my surprise. Rob, definitely. I mean, we talked about White earlier. I did not bring up Deon Kane, but when that guy gets open, he has a chance to really break things wide open. I mean, I don't think he's going away either, because let's talk about a full, when everything is well and good, you're 5 guys, and I think one guy's probably going to miss the cut here, that who I like a lot, but of course you're going to have Juju, Jay Wash, you're going to have DJ 18, Deontay Johnson. I'm not talking Switzer right now. I'm not talking Johnny Holton, because Johnny Holton is a special teamer. He's out there just because he has to be out there. I think you add Deon Cain to the mix, and Tevin Jones. I think those are the 5 you run with right now.
Yeah, and Matt Williamson, who's I think he works for the Steelers radio network now, and he was a pretty prominent scout for years. He said last week he was surprised that Cain, was able to sign with the Steelers. He was surprised that the Colts let him get away. So, and he expects him to stick around. So that's a pretty big endorsement as far as I'm concerned. So I can definitely see him developing here and being one of the receivers next year. He's already one of the receivers now, but staying on the roster and having a more prominent role in 2020.
Yeah. So I mean, remember they brought Kobe Hamilton in a couple years ago, and he ended up being your number 2 receiver in the playoffs. So, right. Guys like that can be helpful. I mean, you never know. And then we've seen guys over the years, come off of practice squads or just come off as free agents and end up being really good players for teams, and even going to the Pro Bowl. Gosh, his name is going to escape me, but I'm thinking number 80 for the Broncos in Rod. Who was the Broncos' big receiver when Elway finally won it?
I know exactly who you mean, but I can't think. I can't think of his name either. Rod. Come on. Comment section, help us out here.
Help us out here.
You guys know everything. Tell us.
He might have been an undrafted free agent guy that Rod Smith.
There you go. Thank you, Wes.
And I really think he was one of those guys. And Dragon Jay-Z says Big Al as well. So, I mean, there's a possibility Deon Cain could be a star for this team. He's got great size. He's got good speed. He's everything that you can go ahead and he's saying he hate me. Dwayne says he hate me, but that was Rod Smart.
Yeah, Rod Smart he played for the Panthers after he came to the NFL.
Yeah, and who was Rod Smart's half brother?
We've already been over this. I forget already. I'm sorry.
Chris Rainey.
That's right, Chris Rainey.
Fifth round pick for the Steelers that didn't last too long with the team, but got into some trouble and they cut him. But here's another one. The wide receiver for the Seahawks that year they won the Super Bowl was working at Foot Locker before they signed him for the game. Wow. I don't know that one. That's a good one. You don't know. But I'm just hoping, someone like Deon Cain really works out for this team. So this is what we're going to do. And Cain equals Superman, Joey Franklin Jr. And that's Lance Williams, the king of nicknames. Dean Cain, Deon Cain, Superman. There you go.
TV Superman.
Yeah. Didn't he play football at USC?
He might have. I can see that. He seems like a pretty athletic guy.
I'm kind of thinking that, but I mean, I don't know for sure. But Keith asked, why does everyone call Benny No Jets? He ran almost the exact 40 times at Combine that Connor did. I'm a big fan of Lance Williams. I don't understand the Benny No Jets thing. I mean, I know it's a takeoff of the Elton John song, but he is your bruiser. He's your guy. So he is the guy that, and Mike Tomlin said that the longer that he's in the game, the stronger he gets. So There you go. Kane is Bryant. Flashback, speed, height, hair. I, I guess. I guess he. I never really noticed his hair, but there you go. So let's. A few minutes left in the show. We're coming up on the 1 hour mark. So throw in your last minute closing calls, and we'll wrap everything up. So any questions you have, please throw them in, and then we will celebrate this hangover no longer for the day. But BTSC, do you feel the offensive play calling is the same, except Duck is simply more comfortable going with the deeper options? I do for sure. Tony, what do you think?
Oh, I agree. I don't think they would have changed the offense that much going from Mason to Duck. So, like you said, I think Mason, or I'm sorry, Duck just got more comfortable with throwing deep, and Washington certainly helped a lot with the way, with his athletic catches. So I don't think it's changed a lot. And they even threw the Wildcat in there yesterday, which is what they did with Mason in weeks 3 and 4. So I don't think, or 4 and 5. So I don't think it's changed all that much. I just think at this point we go back to where Moxie with Duck, and he's just more comfortable back there.
4TL asked, Bad, why is Josh Gordon and AB talked about as wide receivers available, and why is Bryant still out of football? I don't think he's been cleared yet. I think he's still on the suspension list for with the league, and I'm actually pretty confident on that. Here's a great question. If I could find it. How much progress can we expect to see from Duck this week? What do you think? Can he make a jump, or is it that great game and then you fall back to earth? What are your thoughts?
I'm just looking for him to just continue to play within himself like he did yesterday. Just don't trust your receivers downfield with the 50-50 balls. I think that's one thing Mason Rudolph struggled with. He didn't want to trust his receivers with deeper passes, and you know what? I think two things that get overlooked yesterday were the 2 3rd and 6 passes he completed at the end of that game. When they ran so much clock off after starting at the 1 yard line. He found Deontay Johnson on 3rd and 6, and he found Vance McDonald on 3rd and 6, and that kept those that drive alive. So I think that the fact that they trusted him in those spots to throw the ball, and they trusted him again on 3rd down a few plays later, he threw it out of bounds. He threw it away. But I think we can expect a bit of a progression, but we can't expect him to make leaps and bounds. I don't think that's what we're gonna see next week. We're just gonna see a slightly more improved version of what we saw yesterday.
Keep following that progression. That's basically what you need to do. Joey Franklin Jr. asked, does No Jets get to start Sunday? I think he should. I think at this point, I think he does. So with that being said, thank you all of our BTSC family. We do really appreciate everything that you do for us. It's so nice seeing that we do have this entire group. We have 183 strong in the show. Be sure to go ahead, like Dennis Sheridan said, go ahead, hit that like button, keep us going. We love it. We love the fact that you're a part of our day, and thank you so much. Hey, 4 games to go. Take them 1 game at a time. That's the most important thing. Tony, what are your last thoughts?
My last thoughts are, here we are with a great opportunity next week in Arizona, and it's one of those trap games. But there are, like I said last week, there are no trap games with this team, and I expect another close game, and I expect the defense to keep them in the game until the end, and I expect Duck to make a few plays, and James Washington, whoever, and I expect another Steeler victory. I'm going to go with 17-10.
There you go. I am going to reserve my my pick until later on in the week when we do the Steeler preview. Be sure you check that out. Be sure you check out the Stat Geek tomorrow night. Standard is the standard with Lance and with Jeff. Of course, Stat Geek, I failed to mention Dave Schofield there. And then Dave, Jeff, and myself with the preview on Thursday. Lance, once again, will do, I said it this weekend. We'll have the Steeler burning question. I'm not going to tell you my prediction. I'm just going to tell you that I think the Steelers are on the right track, and I'm pretty excited about this game. So wink, wink, that's kind of what I'm thinking. So with that, for Tony Defeo, for Behind the Steel Curtain, for all of you, thank you so much. We will see you next week at this time. Hopefully we're happy. But for the time being, my friends, you have just been hungover.